Gotin Cola.
13 Reasons Why Season 2 has been on Netflix for a few days now, but I decided to wait to do a review of this second season because this season did give me a lot to think about, and I wanted to do a proper, in-depth review of the second season, and I didn't want it to be sloppy, or I wanted to talk about hopefully everything, which may not be completely possible, but I'm going to try. So the first season I know is very controversial, but I really enjoyed it. I liked the first season a lot. It was intense, it was dramatic. The acting, the writing, everything technical was really, really good. And that is also the case in the second season. Everything technical is great. The cinematography, editing, the acting is great. The writing is really good. The directing is really good. Unfortunately, though, the second season is not as good as the first season, and it does have some major, major flaws. What I really liked about the first season is that even though there were 13 episodes and it could have felt really long and dragged at times, it didn't for me personally. For me personally, the first season never dragged. It was never boring. Everything felt like it. Every scene and line of dialogue felt like it needed to be there. That is not the case for the second season. There are times where I got bored during the second season. In fact, the first 4 or 5 episodes are very slow and aren't really that interesting. It did take a while, personally, for me to care again, even though I already cared about these characters, at least the likable ones from the first season. I feel like this second season could have been 10 episodes instead of 13. I don't know. Also, something that I was curious about was the first season sort of ended, kind of wrapped everything up. I mean, there were a couple loose ends, but I was really curious as to how what they were going to do with the second season, and the entire second season revolving around this trial. That is interesting, but I was also intrigued as to how they were going to use Katherine Langford, who plays Hannah Baker in the first season. I know that they well, obviously, if you guys uh, know, have seen the first season, or if you guys saw the trailer for the second season, that she is in the second season. But how her story was completely told, right? Well, there are a few flashbacks and such where Hannah is Katherine Langford is required to be there, and a little bit more story into Hannah's life, a little bit more depth into Hannah's life is shown in the second season, but she is mostly used as sort of a psychological attack on Clay. So, yes, there are flashbacks throughout the second season that show different scenes that took place in between the events of the first season, but she is mainly used as a ghost or a psychological kind of thing that haunts Clay, and basically the ghost of Hannah basically visits him, or it's just him going crazy or his own imagination, and he's seeing Hannah and no one else can, and he talks with her, and it's kind of weird, I'm not going to lie. Well, at first it's kind of weird. Later on, it does make a little bit more sense, and it does get a little bit more dramatic in a good way, but I can't really talk about that. Yeah, because in this review it's completely spoiler free. I may make a spoiler review because there is a lot that I want to talk about, and I won't be able to talk about it all in this review because I want to keep this review spoiler free. So, something that I didn't like, one of the few things that I didn't like about the first season is that the adults were not interesting characters at all, and they were kind of portrayed in a really negative way. And unfortunately, that's the same case for the second season. The adults, especially Clay Jensen's mom, are awful, awful characters. They're fine actors, but just awful characters and just not portrayed that well. The only adults that I truly cared about in both the first and second season is Hannah's mom. She was really really good, and Kate Walsh, the actress, did a really good job with her performance. Even some of the kids that I did like from the first season were not that good in the second season. Specifically, the character of Sky. She felt like a completely different person than her persona in the first season. Which I know what they were doing with her, but she just her character did the complete 180. The writers like did a complete 180 on her personality and who she is, and I really liked what they were doing with her and who she was in the first season. So, and I did not like her at all in the second season. So that was really disappointing. Also, something that was kind of weird about the second season is that many times th- there's this with a trial going on, many of the students have to testify, and then they'll get threatened. Their lives will get threatened. Basically, some anonymous person will threaten them, saying, "If you testify, if you talk, we will hurt you or kill you." And they don't really do anything about it. I mean, sometimes they'll go to the the guidance counselor, Kevin Porter, played wonderfully by Derek Luke, but they don't go to the police and they don't really talk to their parents about it. And I'm just thinking, go to the police. Oh my gosh. I feel like many people that didn't like the first season will dislike the second season even more. A controversy surrounding the main controversy surrounding the first season is that many people accuse the filmmakers of focusing more on just being entertaining and making an entertaining, intriguing story, rather and glorifying suicide rather than addressing the issues head on. And that's not something that I agree with for the first season, but I do kind of agree with it in the second season. I'm not saying that they didn't focus or take seriously the issues like bullying, suicide, sexual harassment, rape at all. I'm not saying they definitely took those issues seriously with the second season, but I feel like with the second season they focused a little bit more on making an entertaining, dramatic story, and I feel like that's not they're not the filmmakers, the writers aren't completely to blame for this though, because because I do feel like many of these the people making the first season weren't expecting to make a second season, but because of how popular it became, they felt obligated to make a second season, and they sort of reluctantly did it. And it was maybe a bit difficult for them, so maybe that's why the filmmakers focused more on making a story rather than addressing the issues. But I do feel like, unfortunately, especially in the second season, there was more of a focus on making a story than addressing and taking seriously these issues. So overall, I thought that the second season was good. Definitely slow. The first season was slow, but it wasn't noticeable. It definitely is, unfortunately, noticeable in the second season. Overall, I liked it. Is it necessary? No, it is definitely not necessary, but it is entertaining. Not as good as the first, but still pretty entertaining. I'm going to give 13 Reasons Why Season 2 a 7 out of 10. So before I end the video, I just want to throw out a quick disclaimer over there. So for those of you who haven't seen the second season yet, or who are still currently watching it, I must warn you. Many of you probably know this already, but I must warn you ahead of time that there is a scene in the last episode in a bathroom, a sexual assault scene that is really, really intense and disturbing. In fact, it was so intense and disturbing that after the scene was finished, I had to pause the show and just take a breather and compose myself for about 5 to 10 minutes before I could continue watching, because it was a really intense scene. So yeah, be careful watching this second season. There's a big reason why there is that little disclaimer in the beginning of the series where the actors playing Clay, Hannah, Bryce, and Jessica basically tell you to be careful watching this show and don't watch it if you do deal with many of the issues that the characters deal with in the show. So yeah, take that disclaimer and many of the little disclaimers before each episode warning about sexual abuse in the episode. Take those disclaimers very seriously. All right, so yeah, thank you so much for watching. I don't know if I'm gonna make a spoiler review of the second season yet. I usually only do spoiler reviews for movies and not for shows, but I don't know. We'll see. All right, thank you so much, and see you guys next time. Bye.